We now move on to our next session. And for this, we already have our dignitaries up on stage. Well-known awarded writer who's known for his works that are typically set in a Parsi community setting. They will be talking about his body of work. To tell you and to give you a little perspective about Cyrus Mistry, he's a short story writer, novelist, playwright. He was only 21 when he won the Sultan Padamsee Award for his play, Doongaji House, which has since come to be regarded as a seminal work of theatre in English. And we can't wait to dive into the conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, Cyrus Mistry with Anupama Bijur.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome, Cyrus.
Hello.
I believe this is your first time at the Bangalore Literature Festival.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So welcome to Bangalore, and as you can see, we've put on a very sunny welcome for you. It's been very cold and depressing the last few days.
Yeah.
But Cyrus comes from an even colder place. He lives in Kodaikanal now. So he was telling me Bangalore can't be as cold as Kodaikanal. Anyway, so today we're going to be talking about chronicling a community. And Cyrus has done that beautifully with many of his books. The two books that we're going to be talking about today, one of them is The Doongaji House, which was Cyrus's first play. He wrote that when he was in college. The second one is The Chronicle of a Corpse Bearer, for which he won the DSC Prize for South Asian Literature in 2014. There are two things we have in common. One is that both of us have a writing background. Second, we both come from communities which are very small and shrinking. At least mine is very, very small and obscure. I come from the Saraswat Brahmin community. Cyrus, of course, is Parsi. And we were talking that we are so obscure that nobody even knows us, that they can't even stereotype us. So you won't find a token Saraswat Brahmin in a movie that you can make fun of and laugh. But that's not to say about the Parsis. And we were talking about stereotypes. And so, Cyrus, what is it that you like about the way Parsis have been portrayed in literature or in popular culture, in movies, and what is it that you don't like?
Well, it's any kind of stereotype is unidimensional, I guess, and all communities have the stereotypes in popular film.
Culture, yeah.
But so it's never totally satisfactory to have a stereotype, but it can be funny at times.
Yeah. What is it that you identify with? Is there anything that you identify with?
About stereotypes?
Yes, and a Parsi stereotype that we see.
Yeah, well, Parsis are supposed to love good food and drink and jokes and stupidity in general, but I mean it's only a very fractional view of Parsis which comes through in the stereotypes.
Right.
So it's okay, I guess. It's allowed to be.
It's allowed, yeah. Okay. Much as we think stereotypes sort of simplify our understanding of communities, they're also a way in which we understand people, or that's our first sort of connect with a community.
Right.
Right?
But there is an element of truth in every stereotype also.
Absolutely, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Certainly, I mean.
Yeah. Your first book, which was a play, deals with a family of old Parsi residents in a building which is decrepit and almost sort of disintegrating.
Right.
And what made you write a play? I know you've dabbled in journalism, you've written short stories and plays.
Yeah, I wrote this play specifically for a contest, playwriting contest, which was sponsored by Theatre Group Bombay. The group is called Theatre Group, and they had advertised it as an international playwriting contest. And there was on offer was the princely sum of 5,000 rupees in 1978, which it was a princely sum. So I just thought I'd have a shot at doing this. And I won the prize. But unfortunately, for 12 years after that, Theatre Group went on sort of dissembling and saying that, oh, can you make these changes? Can you improve the script, this, that? And finally, at the end of all that time, they said, no, I don't think we can produce this play because it doesn't have commercial potential. I mean, they were supposed to produce and stage the prize-winning play, but they backed out of this commitment. And finally, when the play was actually produced by another director called Tony Patel, it was a great success. And subsequently, it had several other productions too, and it went all around the world, all around India, all over India. So they were completely wrong about that,
Right.
So, and for me, it was until that first play was produced and I could see it on stage and listen to what the lines sounded like, I was in a way frozen and I didn't write any other plays. But after it was staged, I wrote another play and subsequently even one more. So,
yeah, and what's remarkable is that you wrote the play despite not having practical experience in theatre.
I have no practical experience of theatre.
Yeah. But I've read it and I was very fascinated that you've given absolutely such wonderful details about how the set might look, and all those footnotes which I think a director can just take and plug and play and produce it.
Thank you, yeah. But more than the stage notes and set notes, I mean, what I'm proud of is the way in which I've used English language phrases to suggest or evoke Gujarati sounds, So, like for instance, the play begins by saying the people are sitting around the table cleaning French beans. And the mother says that make sure to peel the threads of both ends. This house is full of fuss pots.
Yes.
So, when we are forced in English to write, we can't really write Queen's English.
Correct.
For our characters. So we have to try and evoke the sense of them speaking in their own language.
Yeah.
And that's what I tried to do in this play.
Yeah, it's like instead of asking somebody, what do you want, Piroja says, what you want, and things like that, right? Yeah.
Right.
The second book, which is The Chronicle of the Corpse Bearer, the name itself is, it's sort of got an ominous ring to it, but beautifully written book about a small community of corpse bearers within the Parsi community who bear corpses and take it to the fire temple.
No, not fire temple.
Sorry,
the
Tower of Silence. Cyrus, do you want to tell us about how you came to write this book with such a somber topic?
Yeah, actually about 10 years before I wrote the novel, I was asked to research and write a treatment paper for a documentary on corpse bearers. The documentary was supposed to be for UK's Channel 4, but it was never made, actually. But I had all the research with me. So, and I'd met all these guys, the corpse bearers at the Towers of Silence. So I was quite fascinated by what I could do with that. And finally, I wrote this novel. So, the thing about corpse bearers is that they are totally secluded because traditionally corpses or even any dead matter like nail filings or hair cuttings are considered polluting and polluted in traditional scriptures. So corpse bearers are really like outcasts of the community. They're not, because they're involved with cleaning and washing dead bodies and so on, they're not allowed to mix with socialize with people. They're not allowed to attend weddings or go out of the tower. I don't know how many of you are aware of this Towers of Silence. It's a unique place. It's like a fantastic garden and forest must be a few 100 acres on top of Malaba Hill, And at one time there were a lot of vultures which used to inhabit that place. Now, of course, vultures are extinct, but so it was quite a place. And these corpse bearers have the colonies inside those premises. so what was the question? Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah. So I just wanted you to tell them how you came to pick this topic of.
Yeah, so actually novel is really a tragic love story between a young boy who's who's the son of a high priest, and he falls in love with the daughter of a corpse bearer. So it's a sort of something which is unheard of, that a priest's son should marry a corpse bearer. But this boy is so much in love with her, he does. And as a result, he has to give up his home and become a corpse bearer himself, you know.
Right.
I was just attracted to the idea of that kind of social tension, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And it happens in independent India.
Yeah, yeah. It happens. See, in maybe even just 30 or 40 years ago, the situation of the corpse bearers was much worse than it is now.
And it is now.
Because now have got a little bit of education, and people have become less virulent about their attitude towards the corpse bearers, you know. So I think they have a slightly easier time now. But now, of course, I don't think they have much work, because there are no vultures left and no corpses. You know, so because the corpse bearers basically used to carry the bodies up to the towers of silence, where the vultures would devour them within minutes, you know. But now that doesn't happen anymore. So it's all a mess, you know. The old system, which used to work quite well, is probably not practiced anymore.
Okay. We were talking about what makes a community a community. It's the us and the them. And I remember you telling me that when you won the prize for the corpse bearer, this was the DSE Prize for South Asian Literature, one of the jury members made a remark about writing local. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, I mean, it was. See, I'll tell you before that about my first novel. For years, I thought I would never be able to write a novel. You know, I thought didn't know how to structure a novel, but I finally wrote one novel. It's called The Radiance of Ashes, and it's a novel with a vast canvas, set in Bombay, and I think in some ways, it's quite a superb novel, and unfortunately, it didn't get much attention, or it did sell a bit, but not very much. The thing is, this happened because because of editorial sort of changes with the publisher, and there was no editor who was really interested in promoting the book. But so when I thought that, okay, you have written something which has such epic proportions and things, but it's not really attracting much attention at all, I thought, let me now try and write something which is so specific and so limited in its sort of ambience, and yet has kind of metaphysical overtones, you know, and is about life and death and etc. So I did that, and when I won the DSC prize, the head of the jury was the Canadian writer who's called, his name is John Ralston Saul. And he said to me, I mean, he said from the stage, he was talking about this book, and he said that, you know, nowadays people tend to write all these global novels, which are something happens in Kashmir and something happens in New York, and you know. But I think writers should really start with, as in this book, with something which is totally local, you know, and from the local sort of develop the resonance of whatever they want to say. And that for me it was a revelation in some way, because it seems so apt, you know, and so correct in terms of this book. So I was quite happy with that, and anyway, I've gone on writing, but this was a big high point in my career, I guess.
Okay.
Especially for the prize money I got.
Yeah. Do you want to read a passage from
Yeah,
the
sure,
Corpse
sure.
Sparrow? Yeah.
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 Sure. So I'll start by reading a short passage which in some way indicates how corpse bearers were treated, and even now, even till today, they are treated like this. If they were still working, I mean, the vultures are not there anymore, unfortunately. But,
Right.
so this happens, the protagonist of this novel, the priest's son, who has become a corpse bearer himself, he's attending to a funeral. Lost in thought, I didn't notice a particularly lean, cadaverous man with a large mole on his forehead, seated on the veranda among crowds of family and friends, nor did he see me approach. Perhaps he was merely inattentive or too abstracted from long hours of prayer. One leg hoisted over the other, vigorously wagging his cocked foot at the ankle while silently moving his lips, he was completely engrossed in a thick but diminutive prayer book. As I passed him, my leg brushed against this man's oscillating shoe. Accidentally, of course, but the man who had seemed so lost in prayer, so oblivious of his surroundings, suddenly sprang to life. With the suddenness of a spring operated toy, he leapt to his feet and began trembling like a leaf. A few other mourners noticed that something out of the ordinary was going on. Now, the bony figure started making loud and insistent buzzing noises, like an incensed bee. He was saying something to me, abusing me in all probability, protesting his defilement at my hands, but all of it wordlessly, without parting his lips, which remained tightly pressed together. Having once trained for priesthood myself, I was familiar with this routine practiced by the most devout. The hallowed chain of prayer they have been so diligently weaving must not be interrupted by the profane utterances of everyday speech, hence the buzzing. In a ferocious, dumb charade, the man was urging me to keep my distance, to take my unholy self out of his sight, disappear from the very face of the earth, if I read him correctly. All the while, flailing his arms and fists in the air like one possessed. Other mourners stood up too, shocked. The man whom I had thus desecrated by the grace of my shin against his polished leather shoe seemed angry enough to strike me, but fear of further despoilment rendered him impotent and apoplectic with rage. I felt an urge to break into guffaws of laughter. I felt like embracing this strangely awkward man, so terrified of the demon of putrefaction, smothering him in a friendly bear hug and saying, "Do you seriously believe you won't need me one day?" Astride those emaciated shoulders rides the ghost of a corpse. You don't see him now, but it's only a matter of time, believe me, before your blood turns to ice, your limbs harden like wood. Then ask yourself, will your near and dear ones wash and clothe you for the final goodbye? No, sweet man. You will have to depend on one of us, and then we'll have to rub you all over. Of course, I didn't dare deliver that tirade, instead only mumbled contritely, "Forgive me, please. My mistake, Babaji. Please forgive." And bowing low, quickly took my leave as the rest of the grim congregation on the veranda glared at me. I had witnessed instances of corpse bearers fined by Koyaji or even thrashed by self-important and wrathful members of our tribe for sitting on a bench intended for public use, for merely leaning against a wall in one of the pavilions during large funerals that teemed with mourners. Infringing the strict rules of segregation could be dangerous for the corpse bearers. Greatly relieved to have got away so lightly, I allowed my mind to relax and feel once again the silence and peace of the woods.
Okay. So a kind of untouchability is practiced here, and it's so
Yeah.
ironical, right? That this man, accidentally touches his foot
Yeah.
to this one of the mourners, and then there is a reaction, and then he says that when you die, you're going to rely on me because nobody from your family is going to touch you.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these are peculiarities of these conventions and
Yes.
customs, you know.
Yeah.
And this idea that anything which is dead is corrupting, can sort of actually have an effect on the living, you know.
Correct. And it can happen in an instant, like at one instant you're alive and then you're dead, and then you completely
Yeah, yeah.
become something that somebody else should handle, and not
Right,
the family.
yeah.
Yes.
And there's this whole very small community. The corpse bearers would, even at the height of when they were flourishing, wouldn't have been more than 20 people, you know, living in the towers of silence. So only these people would come and take the body and wash it and
Yeah.
etc.
So this book is I know it's about your community, but I think we all feel very guilty that we don't know enough. But in this book, you've obviously done so much research, about what a priest does, waking up at all hours of the day to call for the prayer, the lighting of the lamp,
yeah.
and the funeral activities. How easy or difficult was it to do this kind of research? And I'm sure there are a lot of writers here who will want to know, is there a process to chronicling a community that's different from any other kind of writing?
Well, I was kind of lucky in terms of research because I'd done all this research for a documentary film which was proposed by somebody. A producer thought he'd make a documentary film on corpse bearers, and he asked me to write a treatment paper on what the film would be about. And I went about researching and meeting these people and seeing how they live and so on. But finally, the film was never made, and I had all this material, and it ended up in the novel 10 years after. So
Do you think, like that the jury person said, do you think we should hold a place for chronicling our communities? Encourage it among writers?
yeah, but I have a sort of, I kind of take not umbrage, but I take objection to this idea of chronicling the community, because I think the novel is much more than just meant for the community or for the. I think you're not from our community, but you enjoyed it very much.
Right.
And I think so would anyone who reads it.
Yeah.
And that's all writing should be like that, I guess. Otherwise, there's no point in writing. It's too difficult and grueling a process to go on writing, you know, unless it can appeal to everyone, you know.
Yeah.
It has to have some universal appeal, I feel.
Yeah. But I think you do it brilliantly in the sense that you tell us, or you do a deep dive into your community's
Right,
customs,
right.
but it's also very accessible to somebody who's an outsider. And how privileged do you feel being an insider and writing this, and what challenges might there be for somebody who, let's say, wants to do something similar but who's just fascinated by a particular community
Yeah,
but is not a part of it?
As far as the Parsis go, I mean, a non-Parsi could not even enter the Towers of Silence,
Right.
The estate, you know. And to research all this would be almost impossible for him. But it just so happened I did it, and it served well in this novel.
So we were talking in the room about how insular communities are.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I guess Parsis are very insular in a sense.
Well, not
in a sense.
just like we're talking
But
about
yeah.
Parsis here, but most communities
Yeah, most
are.
communities are.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say, yeah.
But some more than the other, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess all in their own on their own dimension
Right.
would have some form of isolation or.
Yeah. coming to the process of writing a book, I'm sure there are many people who would be very interested in how you wrote this book. Um, any tips for writers who might be wanting to do similar writing for their own communities?
The first and main tip would be that a book should, as one is writing it, it should evolve organically. I think, one would have a sort of overall structure in mind before starting on a book, but as you're writing it, it should grow and grow to its natural kind of form and climax and thing. And this process has to be happening as you're writing it. If you try to pre-think it and then translate it into words, I think there's some loss happens, So I think good writing always happens as you're doing it,
Right, yeah.
So I mean, you may think of a climax scene or something, but how it evolves and how you reach that point and what actually happens in that scene is something which you have to find out as you're writing it. And the inspiration will come then, not by pre-deciding things,
Yeah. Anything else? In this, what I loved about the Chronicle of the Corpse Bearer is that you use the story, a very, very beautifully scripted story, as the hook to also talk about the community.
I must tell you, I don't read my own books after they're published.
Okay. You don't read your own books?
After they're published, no, I just read a little bit
Yeah.
to remind myself. This book was published in 2012,
Yeah.
first edition, and I'm very happy that it's still evoking some interest, and I'm able to continue writing. But so it's I don't know why I said that, but sorry, you were saying what was the question? I forgot.
Sorry, I think we've been told
Yeah,
that
okay.
we're running out of time,
Okay.
but I just wanted to know, do you want to read something from the Dungaji house?
I haven't.
You
found
haven't
anything.
marked?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or any other projects that you are currently working on, Cyrus? Is there going to be a play? Is that going to be a short story compilation?
No, I think it'll be another novel.
Another
But
novel.
I am slightly superstitious of talking about what I haven't written yet.
We
because it-
completely understand.
It tends to fizzle out if one talks about it.
All right. But then we look forward to the next one, and hopefully we will be back at the Lit Fest with your
Right.
book, and we look
Yeah.
forward to hosting you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.